The end of the world has arrived. Fortunately, my brother awakened the spatial ability. I told my brother not to spread the news, but he didn't take it seriously. Later, everyone in the community knew that someone in my family had awakened the spatial ability. The research institute that received the public report took our family away for questioning. My brother insisted that I had awakened the ability, and my parents echoed him. I participated in all kinds of inhumane experiments in the research institute and finally died a miserable death. When I opened my eyes again, I returned to the day before the end of the world. 1. You ungrateful girl, why hasn't this month's money been transferred yet? Your father is ill at home. Hurry up and bring the money back. Hearing the familiar voices, I covered my mouth in shock. I actually returned to the day before the end of the world, in my previous life. I received this call and then rushed back in a hurry. As a result, my father wasn't really ill, they just wanted to trick me back. The three of them were sitting on the sofa, with excited and eager expressions on their faces. Before I could sit down, they told me that my brother had been reborn and that the end of the world would come tomorrow. We had to raise money immediately to prepare supplies. I immediately objected and asked euphemistically if my brother had been carried away by reading novels. My brother sneered, "You're so stupid that there's no cure for you." My parents slapped me hard and forced me to transfer the money in my card to them, otherwise, they would go to my company and cause trouble. I couldn't fight against them, so I transferred the money. If I lost my job, I would really have nothing to eat. What's more, there was always a glimmer of hope in my heart, after all. We were a family connected by blood, but it wasn't until the events of my previous life that I truly understood. They had never regarded me as a part of the family. In their eyes, girls would get married and become part of another family. Since I was considered as someone from another family, I was insignificant and couldn't compare with their precious son. Even though my brother was lazy and regarded them as an ATM, they still doted on him. People have feelings. Since they didn't consider me as a family member, there was no need for me to fawn over them. In my previous life, I took out a bank card with 100,000 yuan in it, but they were still not satisfied. They wanted to take away the antique necklace given to me by my grandmother. It wasn't until I was on the verge of death that I learned that my brother hadn't actually awakened the spatial ability. Instead, there was a space inside the necklace. When we were caught by the research institute, in order to keep the necklace, they framed me as the one who had awakened the ability. It made me suffer inhumane torture in the research institute. Just thinking about it, my body still couldn't help trembling. During those dark days, I couldn't live and couldn't die. In this life, I will never give them a single penny, nor will I give them the necklace. I will hold the space in my own hands and survive in the apocalypse, too. I pretended to agree with my mother, after getting my emotions in order. I handed in my resignation letter to my boss and left without hesitation. I had to go back to the house I rented first, pack my things, and then move to the villa I had just rented through an agency. I had to hand over part of my salary to my family every month, but I secretly saved some money from my meager income. I had to use this money to prepare supplies as soon as possible. The apocalypse was coming soon. I didn't plan to have any more involvement with them, so I had to move out quickly. My phone kept ringing on the way, but I ignored it. I had too many things to do and really didn't have the energy to get entangled with them. When I packed my things and carried my suitcase out of the community, I found my parents and my brother at the gate. They were looking around. When their eyes fell on me, they were like three wolves with green eyes, starving for a long time. I turned around and wanted to run, but it was too late. My mother directly cursed, "Why didn't you answer the phone? You ungrateful thing, we raised you so big, but you're of no use at all." My brother sized me up slyly and said, "Sis, you're not thinking of running away without giving the money, are you?" As soon as he said this, my parents' faces changed dramatically. My father even stopped smoking and stared at me intently. Cold sweat broke out on my back. I smiled and said, "I'm going on a business trip, so I'm carrying a suitcase. You're my family. How could I ignore you?" They looked at me suspiciously. With deep doubt in their eyes, my brother stroked his greasy hair and said irritably, "Let's talk about the important thing first." Just like in my previous life, they started talking about the dream my brother had and then wanted me to give them the money in my card and pawn the pendant given by my grandmother. By the way, I pretended it was the first time I heard it and opened my eyes wide. "This is just a dream. How can you take it seriously?" My brother insisted that it was true. And my parents agreed with him. "You're not saying this just because you don't want to give the money, are you?" I knew this girl has a bad heart. My parents suddenly realized something and stared at me intently. "You heartless thing, what's wrong with giving your money to your brother? Your money is his money. Yeah, having money but not helping your brother. You're an ungrateful person." Hearing this, I sneered in my heart. Over the years, my brother had been living off my parents at home. He was too old to get married and relied entirely on my support. I paid the down payment for the house, and I paid the monthly mortgage. I also sent money for the living expenses of the three of them. Me, heartless, me, an ungrateful person. I wanted to see how they could survive in the apocalypse without my money and necklace. I don't have any money. I have to pay my brother's mortgage every month and also give you the living expenses. I don't have a penny left on me. When they heard this, they roared in anger, and their words were full of swear words. I turned around and was about to leave. My brother was quick-handed and hugged my suitcase, shouting, "She must be trying to run away. The bank card might be in the suitcase." As he said this, they were about to open my suitcase violently. I was so angry that I was shaking. I shouted angrily at the surroundings, human traffickers, help, help." Instantly, it attracted the attention of everyone around. Here. If you're a thief, you won't be sentenced to death. But if you're a human trafficker, you won't be able to walk out alive. All those who could fight swarmed up and surrounded the three of them. I took the opportunity to pull out my suitcase and ran in another direction. Looking back at the three people wailing, I silently said thank you in my heart to the big brothers who stood up for me. The three bloodsuckers were finally left behind me. I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. I took a taxi to the villa I rented, put my luggage away, and lay on the sofa. I began to think about how to open the necklace. Could there be a spell? Space. I want to enter. Open sesame. There was no response. Even that guy, my brother, could open it. I didn't believe I would fail at this step. I frantically searched for the content of novels in this regard in my mind. That's right. Dripping blood to recognize the master, I immediately took out a small knife and made a small cut on my hand. Instantly, my blood was absorbed. The surrounding space began to distort and turned into a vast wilderness. I put my hand into the continuous spiritual spring not far away, and the wound healed instantly. Looking ahead, there was also a villa. My dream since I was a child was to have my own house. I didn't expect that when the apocalypse came, my wish would be fulfilled in this way instead. I took a brief look around. I found that there were complete living facilities inside, including a generator, a freezer, all kinds of home appliances were available. There were also animals and plants that grew naturally. It was simply a paradise. No wonder my brother always sneaked into the space. He had been living such a good life for so long. In this life, it's my turn to enjoy a comfortable life. But you can never have too many supplies, and I don't know when the apocalypse will end. I decided to go out and buy some more daily necessities. Paper money has no value in the apocalypse, just a string of numbers. It's better to spend it all and buy things that can truly ensure my own survival. With a thought, I immediately returned to the real world. After my consideration, I decided to rent a warehouse. If I directly bought things and had them delivered to my home, it would make too much noise. If there were some malicious people, I was afraid it would bring trouble to my doorstep. I would transport the things to the warehouse and then put them into the space. No one would notice me, without anyone knowing. I put on a mask and immediately went shopping. Water resources are scarce in the apocalypse. Although the spiritual spring is good, it's not stable. In case it dries up one day, it will be difficult for me to survive then. So I went to a wholesale beverage store and ordered 200 cases of mineral water. When making up the order, I also selected dozens of cases of various beverages. Then I bought rice, instant noodles, ham sausages, fruits, self-heating hot pots, frozen foods, all kinds of fruits, ice creams, yogurt. I also bought daily necessities, sanitary napkins, soap, shower gel, toothbrushes, self-heating blankets, flashlights, binoculars, batteries. Then I went to the pharmacy to buy all kinds of emergency medicines. Finally, I supplemented according to the apocalypse stockpiling list on a certain app. The 200,000 yuan in my card was finally spent. I had never spent money so happily before. I was really satisfied. When I lay down at home, it was already dark. There were many missed calls from my parents on my phone. I guessed that they were probably looking for me all over the street and still thinking about the money in my card. Unfortunately, I was penniless now. Just as I was thinking, my mother's call came in. I answered it. My mother's furious voice came from the other end. "You're so heartless. You got us taken away by the police car. Those people beat your brother and your father black and blue. It's all your fault that we ended up like this. Hurry up and transfer the money to me, otherwise, we'll go to your company and cause trouble. Let's see if you still want to keep your face in the future. Let all your colleagues in the company know your true face," my brother said beside her. "Mia, if you bring the money now and apologize to me, I'll let it go, otherwise you'll wait for your downfall," I said sincerely, "but I really don't have any money left." "Bullshit, stop pretending. I think you're just pretending to be poor. Your father knows your company's monthly salary. You must have secretly saved it. The screenshot must be faked. Parents, don't be fooled by her." My parents started crying and wailing again. "I raised you from a baby. Is this how you repay us?" They had been using this to kidnap me for so many years, maybe in my previous life. I would have been soft-hearted, but I had already died once. I couldn't keep falling into the same pit. My tone turned cold. Anyway, I don't have any money. Do whatever you want. Anyway, I had already resigned. Let them cause trouble if they want. I don't care. Haha. For, while I was lying at home sleeping soundly, the three bloodsuckers really went to my former company. They pulled out a banner at the gate. Mia is an ungrateful person, disrespectful to her parents and brother, and ran away with her parents' hard-earned money. The three of them stayed at the company gate, crying and wailing. Some people took out their phones and started live streaming. Shocking. A huge gossip at the company gate. Netizens gathered to watch and comment. This Mia is so heartless. She even took her parents' hard-earned money. Guys, it's obvious that this is a family with a preference for sons over daughters. The three of them are sucking the girl's blood. The girl probably couldn't stand it and ran away, but her parents raised her so big. Isn't it right for her to repay them? It's just a little money. Why make such a big fuss? Isn't it natural for a girl to give her money to her parents? Her money is her parents' money. There's no such thing as yours and mine. She's just heartless. Stop defending her. Are the people upstairs hired trolls? We're not blind. Huh. I wish they had vampire parents too. Netizens mocked those who spoke for the three of them. For a while, there were all kinds of scolding and more objective comments. When I took out my phone and came in, I just happened to see this. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. It turned out that there were strangers in the world who would speak up for me. I thought there would only be negative comments. It was really unexpected. Suddenly, the live streaming screen went black, and the host sent a message. The three of them have been escorted away by the security guards. Today's live streaming ends here. I stroked my chin. They should soon know the news that I had already left the company. Just thinking about their stunned expressions, I couldn't help laughing. At the same time, the three of them at the company gate were told that I had long since left the company, and unrelated people were not allowed to linger at the gate. The three of them opened their mouths in surprise, wide enough to stuff an egg in. After a long time, my brother reacted, "Damn it, the apocalypse will come at noon. Let's hurry up and buy some supplies." The group of them rushed to the supermarket to buy things in a hurry. They carried a lot of bags and returned home, heaving a sigh of relief. They had been busy these days and were all exhausted. Thinking of me, they started another round of swearing, hating me to the core, but when they saw the supplies on the ground, they felt a sense of satisfaction. A smile flashed in my brother's eyes. I want to see how Mia can survive in the apocalypse without food. She'll still have to come and beg us in the end. I'll definitely teach her a lesson. At this moment, I was lying on the sofa eating potato chips, with all kinds of beverages piled up on the table. The air conditioner was set to 16 degrees Celsius, and the music was playing, so comfortable. My brother called me. I was really bored, so I answered it. Let's see what he has to say. "Mia, if you hadn't listened to me, the apocalypse is coming soon. Don't come crying back if you starve to death outside." I took a big sip of the soda for geeks. Yeah, you're right. My brother was taken aback and hung up the phone angrily. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the clock on the wall, which was 2 minutes away from pointing to 12. The apocalypse was finally coming. 5. I stood in front of the French window. The sun gradually turned into a blurred spot of light, and the sky was gray. A thick fog rose, and the virus spread. Messages kept popping up in the neighbor group on my phone. "Do you think the weather has become extremely hot and stuffy? God, it was just reported in the news broadcast that the weather is abnormal, and it is recommended to go out less. Guys, could this be the end of the world?" Everyone was a bit stunned by the strange phenomenon and at a loss for what to do for a moment. My brother suddenly sent a message in the group. "Everyone, don't worry. This is just the early stage of the end of the world, and there won't be much danger. It is recommended that you go out now to collect supplies." Someone raised doubts. "Why should we believe you? What if we go out and die? Will you be responsible?" "Yeah, don't scare people here. I hate people like you who spread rumors the most." My brother angrily sent a voice message in the group. "You idiots. The weather in the apocalypse is extremely changeable. You can only go out these few days. Later, you won't be able to go out even if you want to. Just wait to starve to death. Let's wait and see if you don't believe me." Everyone remained skeptical, stayed at home cautiously, and carefully observed the situation outside. What my brother said was indeed right. The sign of the early stage of the apocalypse was the abnormal weather, and the truly terrifying things were yet to come. Photos were sent in the group again. It was clearly my brother, my parents swaggering down the street, carrying bags full of food in their hands. "Those in room 301 have gone out to get food." Could what he said be true? But it's so eerie outside. I really don't dare to go out. My brother sent a sarcastic voice message. "You stupid pigs. Wait until the temperature drops tomorrow, and you can just stay at home and wait to die. As soon as these words were spoken, some bold people secretly ran out to look for food, some timid people still stayed in the house. My brother helplessly sighed that they were really hopeless. The next day, the temperature dropped suddenly, and it was so cold that limbs became stiff. Someone in the group spoke again. What the person in room 301 said was right. Do they know some insider information? Room 301, we're counting on you. From now on, you'll be our backbone, my brother said triumphantly. There's no way around it. Who asked me to have the ability to predict the future? As long as you listen to me, you will definitely be able to survive the end of the world. That's right. My brother had attributed this dream to his own ability to predict the future. He thought he was the chosen one. I knew my brother's character all too well. It was the same in the previous life. As long as someone praised him, he would unconditionally tell everything he knew. Just like exposing his space in the previous life, he tried to be the savior, but in the apocalypse, this kind of behavior was nothing more than a sitting duck. He successfully attracted everyone's attention, including those with ill intentions. Soon, many people began to actively seek my brother's protection. Room 301. Our family has no food left. Can you give us some? Room 301? There's a pregnant woman in my family. Do you still have any milk at your place? For requests like these, my brother insisted on giving things away despite my parents. Mom, Dad, give these things to them first. Later, they will pay us back double. My brother wrote an IOU for everyone who came to ask for supplies. Later, when they went out and found supplies, they would take the initiative to return them to him. I almost burst out laughing when I saw this. In fact, everyone had more or less some food in their hands, but everyone realized that this crisis was not that simple and wanted to stockpile some things at home as much as possible. Unexpectedly, someone was trying to act rich when they weren't. Naturally, everyone was overjoyed. Now the group was in harmony. Everyone was grateful to my brother and wanted to praise him to the skies. They clearly didn't realize the coming crisis. It was difficult to survive in the apocalypse, and people's hearts were even more unpredictable. The conflict soon emerged. My brother began to realize that there wasn't much food at home and finally started to refuse those people's requests. Naturally, everyone wasn't willing. The previous harmony was broken, and they started to curse. Are you in room 301 unwilling to save us? They probably have hidden the food well at home and are afraid that we will embezzle it, so they don't want to give it anymore. Our family was once again in the spotlight. My brother had to speak up. The temperature will rise again in 2 days, then everyone can go out to look for food, but the time is only 2 hours. Then everyone listened to my command, and we will move the supplies from the nearby supermarket back together. Some people had missed the time my brother mentioned before and didn't go out to get food. When my brother released the news again, everyone was eager to take action, so the situation changed again. Given the previous events, everyone still believed my brother's words. Okay, we'll listen to room 301. Let's gather tomorrow and go out to collect supplies together. We'll contact each other in the group then. Seeing this, I truly thought my brother was terribly naive. However, I wouldn't interfere. 2 days later, my brother sent a message in the group. Everyone, let's gather at the gate of our community. 20 minutes passed, and there was still no response. I was eating a red pomelo that I had just peeled and sliding through my brother's voice messages with great interest. You guys went out to move things behind my back. It's really too much. You emptied all the nearby supermarkets. What will my family eat? However, everyone had already returned home with their things, so naturally, no one paid attention to my brother's impotent rage. Finally, my brother left a message. In a few days, the virus will come, and you people can just wait to die. I won't tell you any more news. After a long time, someone in the group took the initiative to step forward to make peace and was willing to gather some supplies for my brother as long as he was willing to continue providing them with information. Of course, my brother readily agreed. There were almost no supplies at home. If there was no more food, I'm afraid the three of them would really have nothing to eat. After getting the supplies, my brother began to explain. In 2 days, there will be black substances floating in the air. Everyone must keep the doors and windows closed. If you inhale them, you will be infected and turn into zombies. This situation will last for a week, and then both the fog and the black substances will dissipate. Hearing this, everyone in the community immediately started to prepare. They closed the doors and windows tightly, leaving no gaps. But 5 days passed, and nothing happened. I was also a bit puzzled. Had the time been postponed? The group was in an uproar. Come on, a week has passed, and nothing has happened. What's going on? Yeah, could he have just been lucky before and talked nonsense? I remembered that I had installed a surveillance camera at home and immediately clicked it open. In the video, My brother was standing on the balcony, carefully observing the air, for fear of missing any clues, but unfortunately, the black substances he mentioned didn't appear. While he was still thinking, there was a knock on the door. My mother went over to look through the peephole. "It's a girl." The girl at the door started to speak. "Can you save me? I haven't eaten for 3 days and I'm almost dying." My mother felt that something was wrong and was reluctant to open the door. My brother and my father looked at each other. My father stopped my mother's action, and my brother went over and quickly opened the door. Unexpectedly, it was 4 or 5 burly men who entered. They were probably attracted by the news in the group and thought that there were still many supplies in our house, so they decided to take a risk. Thanks to my brother's ostentatious behavior in the group, they subdued the 3 of them and rummaged through the house looking for supplies. My brother stuck out his neck and asked, "How dare you break into a private house? I'll call the police and have you all arrested." That group of people sized up my brother like he was a fool. They were probably wondering how this kind of person had managed to survive until now. After searching and finding that there really weren't many supplies in our house, just a few breads and bottles of milk, they kicked my brother before leaving. "Damn it, you poor wretches." The situation in our house was completely beyond their expectations, and they came up empty-handed. After they left, the 3 of them sat together dejectedly. My brother angrily smashed the things in the house, making a racket. My mother cowered in the corner crying, and my father pressed his temples, cursing under his breath. "Great, all the supplies we brought back with so much effort have been given to others for free. Do you want me and your mother to starve to death? I told you not to give them away, but you just didn't listen. The only food we had has now been taken away by others. You're such an idiot." My brother suddenly stood up, took out his phone, and sent a message. "My family has no food now. Those who owe us things should quickly return them to me." He also sent over the IOUs that those people had written before one by one and then at them individually in the group. Room 402. Smiling emoji. Room 601. Smiling emoji. In short, no one took the initiative to offer to return the food. I couldn't help but send a monkey emoji. Now my brother had no time to care. He watched helplessly as the number of people in the group gradually decreased. Room 201 has left the group chat. Room 802 has left the group chat. The sky outside was unnaturally gloomy, and the atmosphere at home was also extremely heavy. My brother sat on the sofa restlessly. "Shut up, I'll think of a way." Suddenly, his eyes lit up. "Let's find my sister. She will definitely have a way. Hurry up and call her and ask her to send us supplies." My father nodded repeatedly. "Hurry up, call Mia." I sneered when I saw this. Then my mother's video call came through. I answered it, and the 3 faces on the other side were right in front of the screen. When they saw the potato chips in my hand, their eyes turned scarily red. "You bitch, your father and I are starving at home, and you still have snacks to eat. Hurry up and send us some food, or you won't be part of our family from now on." "Okay." I showed a standard smile. The 3 of them were stunned. My father showed a pitiful expression and pleaded, "Your mother and I haven't eaten for 3 days. We've raised you for so many years. It's not too much to ask you to send us some things, is it?" My mother earnestly advised, "Mia, we're family. There's no distinction between yours and mine. Hurry up and bring some food back." "Yeah. Your brother hasn't eaten well for several days and has lost a few taels of weight from hunger." I put down the potato chips in my hand and clapped. All along, I was just the one doing the work at home. I even had to wait until they finished eating to have my meal. It was clearly me who had been taking care of them all along. In the end, they completely ignored my efforts. Perhaps in their eyes, I was never a part of their family, and only my brother was their child. "Mom, isn't it my brother's fault that you have no food?" I put down my chopsticks and said calmly, "Didn't my brother give all your food to others? He can't even feed himself but still wants to give food to others. Calling you a pig is even flattering you." As soon as I said this, my brother immediately exploded. "Who are you mocking? I'm your brother. You'll still have to rely on me in the future. Mia, you'd better obediently send the food to me, or you'll regret it." My father couldn't stand it anymore and slapped the table hard. "Enough, I'll just ask you one thing. Are you coming to send us food or not?" "No." I looked firmly at the 3 people in front of me. "Very good, Mia. You're just a little beast, selfish and heartless. Yeah. If you have the ability, don't eat or drink." I calmly hung up the phone. 7. Until the evening, my phone vibrated wildly. I didn't even need to think to know it was my brother and the others. I set up the hot pot on the table. As soon as I answered the call, the screen was filled with steam. My brother let out a shrill roar. "We've been waiting at home all day, and you're actually having a meal all by yourself, you heartless thing." "Dad, Mom, look at this. I want to eat hot pot too. Ask her to come back and let me have some." He kicked the leg of the stool irritably. and his face was contorted with anger. My parents were also stunned. My mother took the initiative to act as a peacemaker. Mia, come back quickly. There's no food left in our house. In a few days, your father and I will starve to death at home. I pretended to be in a dilemma while still eating the meat. It's so dangerous outside. I really don't dare to go out. Then do you have the heart to let our whole family starve to death in the house? We're family, if you come back and stay with us. We can also take care of you. I laughed so hard that my shoulders shook. All along, I was just the one doing the chores at home. I even had to wait for them to finish eating before I could eat. It was clearly me who had been taking care of them all along, but in the end, they didn't take my efforts seriously at all. Perhaps in their eyes, I was never a part of their family, and only my brother was their child. Mom, isn't it my brother's fault that you don't have anything to eat? I put down my chopsticks and said calmly, didn't my brother give all your food to others? He can't even feed himself but still wants to give food to others. Calling you a pig is even flattering you. As soon as these words came out, my brother immediately lost his temper. Who are you mocking? I'm your brother. You'll still have to rely on me in the future. Mia, you'd better obediently send the food to me, or you'll regret it. My father couldn't stand it anymore and slapped the table hard. Enough, I'll just ask you one thing. Are you coming to send us food or not? No. I looked firmly at the three of them. Very good, Mia. You're a little beast, selfish and heartless. Yeah. If you have the ability, don't eat or drink. I calmly hung up the phone. After that, my brother had the nerve to invite those who had left the group chat to come back. Everyone, my sister has stockpiled a lot of food at home. She was so heartless that she abandoned us. And she made my parents so angry that they fell ill. Since we're all neighbors, let's go to her house to get the food and divide it equally among us then. As soon as these words were spoken, they really tempted many people. The 2 hours when the temperature would return to normal were coming soon. The nearby supermarkets and vegetable markets had almost been ransacked, and there was no sign of the apocalypse stopping at all. Naturally, the more food, the better. People with different thoughts came forward one after another to condemn me and actively said that they would help my brother get the food back. Later, my brother sent an address in the group. I installed a positioning system on her phone. This is the address where she lives. Let's make a quick decision. A group of people swaggered to the gate of the villa. This dead girl actually lives in a villa. She really knows how to enjoy herself. Is your sister very rich, in such a big place? There must be a lot of food. My parents didn't expect that I would live in such a place. Their faces changed again and again, and finally turned into hatred towards me. During the days when they couldn't even afford to eat, I was actually enjoying myself in such a place. So, this group of people was like a band of robbers passing through. When they broke the door open, they were dumbfounded. The huge villa was empty. Just a complete shell. They refused to believe it and searched everywhere, checking every corner of the villa in batches. The answer was that there was nothing at all. When I heard that they had installed a positioning system on my phone, I put all the things in my house into the space. At this moment, I was lying in the space, quietly watching everyone's stunned expressions. They were dumbfounded, and even my parents stood there in a daze. My brother murmured, "It's impossible. The address clearly shows it's here. My positioning can't be wrong." Those who had made the trip in vain rolled their eyes and held back their anger. I don't know who started it first, but several people began to grab my brother and beat him up. I shrank in the space and watched the surveillance of the villa on my phone, laughing uncontrollably. My brother wasn't tall, and due to his lack of exercise over the years, he could be said to have no ability to fight back at all. My parents surrounded him like hens protecting their chicks and accidentally got hit several times. My brother seemed to be in a trance, still muttering, "How could it have turned out like this? It shouldn't be like this. Why don't these people listen to me? This is different from what I dreamed." My attention was on the person at the back of the team. Something had been off about him since he entered the villa. He was staggering as he walked, and his face was faintly turning black. Something flashed through my mind suddenly. In an instant, that person grabbed the person next to him and started biting. The people around panicked and tried to avoid him. During the struggle, his clothes were torn apart, and the flesh on his body was already rotting and oozing pus. He had mutated and was about to evolve into a zombie. Blood splattered everywhere, and it seemed to stimulate something in his body even more. The villa became a slaughterhouse. In the chaos, the zombie charged straight at my brother. My father quickly pulled my brother and started running, and his hand instinctively pushed my mother out. The next moment, her scream and the sound of the zombie chewing came. My mother stared at their backs in disbelief. My father leapt back. "Sorry, old woman." The zombie's roar turned into the sound of chewing, and there was blood and flesh all over the ground. My brother finally came to his senses and grabbed my father's hand in fear. "Dad, What should we do? The person who had been bitten in front of them gradually got up, and they also turned into zombies. The two of them quickly ran towards the door, unexpectedly. As soon as they opened the door, a zombie flew out from a corner. It was time to test their speed. My brother was young after all. He quickly pushed my father out. My father became the zombie's meal. His eyes were wide open, filled with unwillingness. My brother managed to escape the disaster and hid somewhere. Looking at the screen full of blood, I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, after I had no more use value, I crawled back to find my parents, but they turned around and locked me outside the door. Later, when the zombies came, the three of them actually pushed me directly into the horde of zombies in order to escape. It was also the sound of chewing like this before I died, which made me terrified, to be honest. Seeing their ending, I didn't feel anything. Instead, I felt a little relieved. This is what they owed me. 8. The group chat on the phone started to stir again. It was already dark, and the temperature was gradually dropping, but none of the people following my brother had come back. No one noticed the black substances floating in the air, and the virus had finally arrived. Room 301, what did you do to my child? Nothing bad should have happened to them, right? I only have this one child in my family. Many voices rose up. Room 201, everyone. I just saw the guy from room 301 secretly go upstairs. Where's my husband? He hasn't come back yet. My child hasn't come back either. Room 301, don't play dead. Come out and say something. I sent all the videos on my phone in the group chat at once. It showed the scene of everyone being massacred. Everyone saw the bloodshed of the apocalypse for the first time. Before, it was just the lack of food and the harsh weather. They didn't expect that the zombies on TV would appear in the real world. The families who had lost their young and strong members were filled with rage at the moment. They had thought it was just an ordinary search activity, but they didn't expect to lose their lives. But it wasn't until the events of my previous life that I truly understood. If you hadn't taken my brother out, he wouldn't have died. It's all his fault. He's the one who killed everyone. He should pay with his life. My brother stared at the chat records on the phone in fear, and there was an indescribable panic in his heart. Before long, those who wanted to take revenge on my brother broke into my former home. They pulled my brother out from under the bed. Everyone surrounded him. And my brother was so scared that he lost control of his bladder and tried desperately to squeeze out through the door. All his efforts were in vain. My brother died under the gang beating. Before he died, he was still shouting, "No, it's not supposed to turn out like this." Those black substances floated in and infected everyone who came out. My home completely became a slaughterhouse. My brother, who was bitten to a pulp, staggered up, walked towards the balcony, and then fell down. I turned off my phone. All the previous pain and unwillingness finally came to an end with their departure. I hid in the space, and the bloody storms of the apocalypse had nothing to do with me. Half a year later, the human base was finally established, and rules and order were re-established. I stood on the wall of the base, looking at the rising sun on the horizon. The broadcast was playing continuously. Welcome to the Hope Base. Story 2, on the day before the apocalypse. Everyone in our building was reborn. In our previous life, we kept to ourselves. As a result, our doors were broken down and our resources looted, ending with us all falling prey to zombies. This time around, we are helping each other, carving a path to survival amidst the apocalypse, faced with shameless relatives and friends, and despicable men and women. Everyone in Building 66 vowed not to play the saint. 1. The noon news was reporting a malicious biting incident at the train station when I rolled off the couch to the floor, breaking out in a cold sweat. I had just had a dream. In the dream, a zombie crisis erupted, society was thrown into chaos, and the world turned into a hellish landscape. After struggling for 40 days, my ex-boyfriend and his crew broke through my door. They stole the last half bag of rice I had, and he even intended to let his men violate me. In the end, he deliberately let a horde of zombies in, leading to my being torn apart by them, along with everyone else in my building. The terror I felt as the zombies overpowered me clung to me like a chronic disease, inescapable. I took several deep breaths, and just then, the next news story began to form in my mind. The voice of the TV presenter confirmed that the so-called dream was everything I had experienced. I was enveloped by a strong sense of unreality. But the rising hatred and will to survive in my heart pulled my sanity back to reality. I knew that now was not the time for fear or dwelling on the past. October 20th, just one day before the outbreak of the zombies, time was tight, and tasks were heavy. I needed to stock up and fortify my dwelling to ensure I could survive the apocalypse first. 2. I grabbed my phone, pushed open the anti-theft door, and heard another door open across the hall. A tall young man stood before me. wearing a black hoodie. The large hood covered most of his face, and as I tilted my head, I could see a black cap under the hood as well. Both his cap and his head were pressed low, as if he was afraid of making eye contact. Through these coverings, I could only make out his pale lips and a refined jawline. Having lived in Repulse Bay for 7 years, and with him living opposite me for 3, I had seen him during the day no more than a handful of times. Yet it was this socially anxious person who had rushed up to save me from those men, preventing me from losing my dignity before my death. Remembering how those people had brutally amputated his limbs, I felt nothing but guilt towards everyone in the building and endless gratitude towards him. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I stepped forward and hugged him tightly. Thank you for saving me, more than the him in front of me. I wanted to thank the him from my past life. But neither I nor he from that past life had the chance anymore. Feeling regretful, I was about to let go when he suddenly made a sound. I looked up instinctively and found myself caught in his dark eyes. His eyes were filled with the relief of surviving a catastrophe, and in that moment of our gazes meeting, I seemed to understand something. I swallowed and tentatively asked, You're reborn too? 3. I hadn't quite recovered from the realization that the young man was also reborn, then. The sound of several more doors opening came from downstairs. Is there some community event today that I don't know about? I asked him subconsciously, but then I remembered he had never spoken to me before. Not even when he desperately saved me, he had remained silent. Perhaps he was mute. As this thought crossed my mind, I felt even more sorry for him. I looked at him with pitying eyes, seeming to understand my thoughts. He lowered his head somewhat embarrassedly and explained, I can speak. Someone's upstairs, right? The air between us froze for a moment, and then the voice of lawyer Zachary from the 5th floor, known as the social chameleon, came through. The silence between us was finally broken. He quickly climbed the stairs to the 6th floor landing, gripping the handrail firmly as he addressed me and the boys seriously. Alexander, Autumn, the apocalypse is coming. You'd better start stockpiling more supplies. Before I left the house, I was fretting over how to convince the building's residents to stock up without making them think I was crazy, and then, to my surprise, lawyer Zachary brought it up himself. Residents from downstairs chimed in, agreeing. Lawyer Zachary has a point. There was just a report on the news about a biting incident. It's better to be safe than sorry. This had never happened in my past life. How could ordinary people suddenly start stockpiling for no reason, all sharing this sense of crisis? Something felt off, so I cautiously asked, You and everyone else downstairs, you haven't been reborn, have you? The moment I spoke, there was a brief silence downstairs, and then suddenly, it erupted into chaos. Also, you've experienced zombies too? Wait a minute, how many of us have been reborn? It turned out my guess was right. Every one of us, including the young children, had been reborn. The kids were too young and thought it was all a nightmare. Now, 7 households, including mine, were gathered in my apartment. On the 1st floor lived the retired teachers, Grandma Maya and her husband. The 2nd floor housed Ashton, an interior designer. The 3rd floor was home to Dr. Lou and his family of 3, along with Uncle Anthony from the factory's warehouse management, also a family of 3. The 4th floor had 1 vacant apartment, while the other was connected to lawyer Zachary's on the 5th floor. The 5th and 6th floors were occupied by Alexander. I lived on the 6th floor, studied automation, worked at a design institute, and knew a bit about electrical work. After lawyer Zachary gathered everyone's information and professions, he turned his attention to Alexander, who hadn't spoken yet. With a casual demeanor, he said, I know where you live, but we still don't know your name or what you can do. Alexander cleared his throat, his voice slightly hoarse. He said, Alexander, I was a policeman. Knowing his name and profession from lawyer Zachary, I suddenly felt a surge of safety. We gathered to leverage everyone's professions and connections to more efficiently and thoroughly prepare for the apocalypse. Lawyer Zachary scratched his head. My profession isn't very useful. I can't exactly preach the law when zombies are biting, but I have a good head for numbers and can handle financial matters. The elderly couple exchanged looks, and Grandma Maya smiled, saying, We don't have much by way of skills, just a lot of students and a decent pension. If you need money or can't find some connections, we can help. Dr. Lou chuckled. Leave the procurement of medical supplies and treatment of injuries to me and my wife. Uncle Anthony volunteered. I know many people in the food industry and have some experience in managing supplies. I can help everyone develop a reasonable stockpiling plan to ensure we have enough food and resources during the apocalypse. Ashton raised his hand, mentioning that his company had several construction teams that could reinforce doors and windows to prevent zombie entry. As for me, being in automation, I took charge of the building's power systems to ensure a continuous electricity supply. Alexander was tasked with the building's security and setting up traps. Alexander hardly ever left the building and was the only one without a car. Fortunately, The security store he needed to visit was in the same direction and not far from the hardware store I was going to, so my co-driver's seat gained an extra passenger. My mom is in City A, and it takes her 5 hours to get here by high-speed train. Before leaving, I need to get her to City C so that I can go without any worries. I pretended to cry while holding my phone, sending messages to my mom like, I want to jump off a building, I don't want to live anymore. After sending the messages, my expression changed in an instant, and I turned to see Alexander's surprised face. He was nervously rubbing his hands on his thighs, which was somewhat endearing. I wasn't embarrassed yet, but he began to feel awkward first. I watched him with amusement and casually reminded him, we still have almost a day left. If you can make it, you should also call your parents over. Uncle Anthony is currently taking a head count in the group. Alexander paused, tugged at the corner of his mouth, and said softly, My parents are dead, I'm all alone now. His words hit me hard, and I felt terrible for inadvertently bringing up such a painful subject. Sorry, I said sincerely. This made Alexander feel embarrassed, and he hurriedly reassured me, it's okay, you didn't know. He spoke more fluidly in his rush. I suddenly became curious whether it was his parents' situation that had turned a police officer into a withdrawn and dispirited man. Just then, my phone buzzed with a notification. We had created a survival group for the apocalypse to keep each other updated on our progress. Ashton mentioned in the group that he had found the construction team, which successfully diverted my attention. Realizing I was falling behind, I immediately dismissed my other thoughts, stepped on the gas, and followed the navigation towards our destination. Alexander took a taxi by himself while I headed straight to the hardware store, in preparation for potential power outages during the apocalypse. Solar panels and batteries were essential. Our building housed 7 families, so I purchased 10 solar power systems and prepared 3 portable 150,000 mAh outdoor batteries for each household. Alexander and I lived on the top floor, with direct access to the rooftop, so I also bought 2 wind power generators. This way, we could supply excess electricity to our neighbors. In a city like City C, where power shortages are rare, it's unusual for someone to buy so many off-grid power systems. The store owner, thrilled by the large purchase amounting to 300,000 yuan, gladly threw in 2 extra batteries. After urging the owner to expedite the installation, I turned to buy a multifunctional toolbox and other items like power strips, soldering irons, wires, and switches. This ensured that if any electrical lines or appliances broke down, I could handle the repairs. With gas likely to be cut off, induction cookers were a necessity, so I casually picked up 15 of them. Considering the high energy consumption of air conditioning, I bought 20 electric fans instead. I also got 20 energy-efficient light bulbs and fixtures, enough to handle any replacements. Electric blankets and heaters for the winter were also on my list. After tallying up, in addition to the original 12 residents, there were now new additions including my mom, Ashton's dad, and lawyer Zachary's parents, making a total of 16 people, so I rounded up to 20 sets. Each household already had an electric kettle, but I bought 5 more as backups. Every family had a refrigerator, but wanting to freeze more meat, I purchased an additional 720-liter freezer. When I asked in the group, everyone else also wanted another freezer, so I ended up spending 30,000 yuan on 7 freezers. As the air quality deteriorates during the apocalypse, I impulsively ordered 20 air purifiers, considering the likelihood of power and internet outages. Radios for receiving crucial news and drones for scouting the surroundings were essential, so I bought 3 of each. After completing these purchases, my task was nearly done. I loaded what I could into my trunk and had the store urgently deliver the rest. When I went to pick up Alexander, I passed by the computer city. With plenty of time on my hands, I went in and bought 10 1TB tablets, 10 large-capacity USB drives, 10 adapters, and 23 in-1 chargers. My plan was to have Uncle Anthony and the 2 kids of Dr. Liu fill up the devices with data, anything really, just to help pass the time. Everyone in the group was fervently carrying out their tasks. Ashton led a construction team to dismantle the doors of the stairwell in 7 households, replacing them with cast aluminum explosion-proof doors. Considering the possibility of large groups of zombies or similar impacts, he added an extra door inside each unit in trance. Seeing the thickness of these doors in the video reassured me considerably. Bulletproof glass would take too long to customize, so Ashton settled for tempered glass instead. Luckily, one of Grandma Maya's students worked at a tempering plant, which helped us quickly resolve the glass issue. Zombies are attracted to light, so as a precaution, Ashton planned to install double-layer blackout curtains on each window. I briefly reviewed Dr. Lu's inventory, which included 5 boxes of vitamin C, 5 boxes of multivitamins, 3 boxes of calcium tablets, 2 boxes of iodine, 5 boxes of alcohol, 10 boxes of gauze, 2 boxes of Band-Aids, and more, covering everything from diarrhea and cold treatments to antibiotics, medical gloves, protective gear, and painkillers. Uncle Anthony went to a food factory and ordered 100 boxes of meal packs, 100 boxes of compressed biscuits, 50 boxes of fruit cans, 50 boxes of various meat cans, 5 boxes of lemon slices, 30 boxes of dehydrated vegetables, 20 boxes of dehydrated fruits, 20 boxes of sausages, 100 boxes of instant noodles, and 100 boxes of bread. For 16 people, the rice needed for 2 years was about 2,000 kilograms, so we bought 80 bags of various kinds of rice, each weighing 25 kilograms. Flour and noodles were also essential, with 30 bags of flour and 50 boxes of noodles purchased. With this, we had almost bought enough food. The next important thing was water. Once the water supply was cut off, we could only rely on solar water heaters provided by the community and water storage barrels. Rain would help reduce the consumption of bottled water. Considering the weight-bearing limitations of the upper floors, we planned to store all the bottled water in the garage. Uncle Anthony calculated the area and ordered 4,000 barrels of mineral water. Additionally, we stocked up on 7,000 pounds of frozen pork, beef, and lamb, 500 bags of salt, and 300 bottles each of soy sauce, cooking oil, and vinegar. We also stocked up on durable fruits and vegetables like 300 pounds of apples, oranges, grapefruits, 200 pounds of cucumbers, 500 pounds of potatoes, 200 pounds of cabbage, 500 pounds of Chinese cabbage, 300 pounds of radishes, 300 pounds of squash, 300 pounds of pumpkins, 200 pounds of onions, 200 pounds of sweet potatoes, 50 pounds of ginger, 1,000 eggs, and 500 pounds of cured meat, sanitary pads for women, as well as clothes, towels, toothbrushes, and other necessities for the next few years were bought wholesale by Dr. Alyssa and Mrs. Chin, who are Dr. Lu's and Uncle Anthony's wives respectively. They bought 20 boxes of sanitary pads, which was more than enough for someone like me who irregularly menstruates and doesn't use up a box in a year. As for the perishable fruits and vegetables, we could dry them on the rooftop before they spoiled. Speaking of the rooftop, it could also be used for growing vegetables. The inherent gene of a gardening family reminded me, and I quickly messaged Dr. Alyssa and Mrs. Chin in the group to help buy some vegetable seeds and soil. While I was eager to check for more messages from lawyer Zachary, Alexander, and the security store owner finished loading the goods, he bent over and knocked on the window, peeking inside with a somewhat foolish expression. I unlocked the car, and Alexander obediently got into his seat. Curiously, I asked, "What did you buy?" "Walkie-talkies, knives, fire extinguishers, stab-proof vests, helmets, knee pads, elbow guards, pepper spray, stun guns, compound bows, slingshots, steel balls, and even riot batons," Alexander listed enthusiastically, counting them off one by one. As I listened carefully and turned the car around, I suddenly caught sight of my dad and stepbrother approaching. I quickly ducked my head, but unfortunately, my dad still spotted me. "Autumn, you little rascal, if I hadn't bumped into you, would I have never seen you again? I raised you all these years, and you haven't given me a dime in support, you undutiful daughter. You're just as heartless as your mother." My dad angrily blocked my car, pointing at me. He cursed. My younger stepbrother stood by my car door, visibly upset, and chimed in, "Sis, you're nearly 30, and Dad is over 50 now. It's really time you took care of him. What's the point in avoiding us like this? What right does a man who abandoned his wife and daughter for an affair have to ask me to provide for his old age?" I couldn't help but scoff. "Let's talk about it when he's paralyzed and loses his ability to work, if he can't wait. I can help him now." With that, I released the clutch and let the car roll towards my father. He seemed genuinely scared that I might actually press the accelerator and cripple him, so he quickly stepped aside to clear the path, remembering his alcoholism, domestic violence, and the fact that he had another family behind my mother's and my back. My good mood vanished instantly. Frustrated, I stormed into the supermarket to binge on snacks. Alexander, ever so helpful, pushed the cart for me. As I grabbed a few bags of chips, I casually asked, "Alexander, my relatives say I'm heartless. I haven't contacted my dad in 10 years. Do you think I'm being too harsh on him?" He shook his head, pondering seriously before replying, "No, there should be a return on what you put in. Not everyone is cut out to be a parent. If there were a parenting exam, I think many would fail." Alexander's stutter had improved significantly, showing his effort to overcome it, while talking to me. There was a barely noticeable sadness in his eyes. Perhaps my words made him think of his own parents. Realizing this, I quickly changed the subject. Grab whatever you want to eat. It's on me. Alexander gave a slight smile, casually picked up a bag of sunflower seeds, and that was it. I sighed. Despite being financially drained, he was still so considerate about saving my money. After filling 10 shopping carts with snacks, 10 cases of soda, and 10 boxes of drinks, I realized I bought too much. With a worried frown, Alexander remained calm. He pointed to a distant red sign. No worries, we can get it delivered. Following the direction of his hand, my expression relaxed. Thank goodness, my SUV definitely wouldn't have been enough. I turned to Alexander. You saw the sign earlier, didn't you? That's why you didn't remind me to buy less or to call for a delivery van earlier. Alexander smiled, shrugged noncommittally, and pushed the cart towards the checkout. We returned to Repulse Bay 8 hours after the rebirth. Ashton and the construction crew had finished replacing the doors and windows and were now installing soundproofing in the interior. Uncle Anthony's conspicuous orders were scheduled to be delivered by the factory people in the middle of the night. The essential medicines from Dr. Lou, along with items Ms. Chin and Dr. Alyssa purchased from the wholesale market, had already been moved into the building. I went upstairs and handed the tablets and USB drives I bought to 2 kids who were still in elementary school. Ashton pointed at the portable power bank in the room and asked, Autumn, how many times can this thing fully charge a phone? Recalling what the seller had told me, I answered, about 80 times, I guess. Hearing this, Ashton immediately felt relieved. This outing cost me over $500,000. And I needed to report the public procurement part to Lawyer Zachary. I asked, where's Lawyer Zachary? Ashton, busy examining the newly installed solar inverter, replied without looking up. He's out buying emergency supplies like blankets, candles, and also the water filters and purification tablets you mentioned in the group. As he spoke, Lawyer Zachary, carrying several large boxes, called us in the corridor. Autumn, Ashton, stop chatting and come help me carry these. The items Lawyer Zachary purchased weren't many, and Ashton and I figured we could carry them in one trip. The technician installing the security system downstairs, seeing us continuously busy, asked puzzledly, Miss, with such a grand setup in this building, you aren't believing those end-of-the-world online rumors, are you? We had previously considered the possibility of attracting too much attention. The workers we found were all from far away. Even the construction team Ashton hired was set up this way. Even after the zombie outbreak began, their reaction was too little too late. The master's words were trivial, but as several neighbors passed by, their curiosity was piqued by his words, and they all glanced over at us. I felt a pang of fear in my heart, worried that the situation of our building, number 66, would become the talk of the entire neighborhood and even the surrounding area, in this apocalyptic world. It's not just the zombies that are terrifying, but also the human heart. I quickly played dumb. Well, our old neighborhood has poor security and high electricity costs. A police family moved into our building. They know a lot, so we just listen to them and muddle through. I mentioned the police on purpose, and the neighbors laughed. Having such neighbors is more deterrent than any security measures you could install. I nodded repeatedly, agreeing with them. They didn't continue to watch. And I, fearing that speaking too much might lead to mistakes, stopped talking to the master. On the evening of October 20th, at 10 p.m., with only 14 hours left until the apocalypse, my mother finally arrived. To make her worry, I deliberately did not reply to her messages. Seeing me alive, she burst into tears. I comforted her a bit, then told her everything that had happened before and after my rebirth. She still didn't believe me, even asked if I had gone mad. I didn't explain too much, because our building was already well prepared, and now that she was here, my mom had no choice but to wait for tomorrow to come. Taking advantage of the quiet night, we cleared out 12 garages. There were empty apartments on the 1st, 2nd, and 4th floors, plus the garages and other vacant rooms in residents' homes, and my and Alexander's attic. There should be enough space for storage. The night was destined to be sleepless. We checked the supplies we had bought while waiting for midnight to come. In the dead of night, several large trucks parked orderly in front of Building 66. Following the storage plan laid out by Uncle Anthony, we did our best to help the masters move the goods to the designated areas. I couldn't handle the heavy rice, so I chose to carry water instead. The variety of goods we bought was not vast, but the quantity was substantial, even with over 20 people helping. It still took us more than 4 hours. In the early days of autumn, the rising morning sun dispersed the darkness, and the dawn shone through the clouds onto the earth. We finished unloading the goods by daylight, and a new day began. At 7 in the morning, Ashton called the workers to continue the unfinished soundproofing and curtain installations from yesterday. At 8, Lawyer Zachary's parents finally arrived, and everyone who had agreed to take refuge in Building 66 was now here. At 9, with only 3 hours left until doomsday, Alexander conducted the final preparations. In the mountains of Sea City, where wild animals often appear, the villagers living at the foot of the mountain would place fences and traps near their homes for protection. He had disappeared for a long time last night, going to the countryside with Grandpa from the first floor to look for equipment. At 10:30, the construction team finished their work, and Alexander completed setting up the traps in the surrounding green belts. Now, with only an hour and a half until the apocalypse began, we closed the building's main door and anxiously awaited the overlap of past and present lives. At noon, violent biting incidents began to be discussed explosively online. Short videos everywhere showed people with gaping mouths, biting their kind like wild beasts. Martial law began, and gunshots sounded outside, but we all knew it was already too late. People realized the seriousness of the situation. People began to flock to supermarkets and convenience stores to stock up on supplies. However, many who went out never made it back home. The zombie virus spread widely, and the screams of the residents outside could be heard, separated by a window. It was like in a past life, watching our kind either turn into zombies or become their feast. The sight of zombies feeding was enough to make several people who had never witnessed it vomit. My mother turned pale, frightened and pained for me. Autumn, you suffered so much in your past life. If it weren't for you, I couldn't have lasted long on my own. In our last life, my mother ran out of food and ammo on the 20th day, and we lost contact after she went out to look for supplies. I dare not think about what happened to her afterward, but whenever I close my eyes, I see her screaming for help. Thankfully, fate gave me a chance to save everything. I held her hand tightly and shook my head, signaling that it was all over now. Even those with a little bit of stock were afraid to go out, but after a while, the lack of food and water forced them to venture out. Just like my helpless mother in our previous life, on the 12th day of the apocalypse, some people, driven to desperation, rushed out of the building, exciting the zombie horde that had been quiet for days. The strange noises and impacts made by the zombies were truly chilling. In times like these, people tend to gather together for a sense of security, and we were no exception. Lawyer Zachary and Alexander's house was large, and it became the favorite place for everyone to stay. Dr. Lou took up knitting with my mother to pass the time, saying it helped keep his fingers nimble. Grandma Maya and her husband, along with several others, were reading books. Dr. Alyssa and Ashton were building with Legos, with Lawyer Zachary giving tips from the sidelines, and I was curled up on the couch at Alexander's house, eating popcorn and watching The Legend of 1900. Just as I was about to cry during a particularly moving scene, I caught a glimpse of something off about Alexander, which startled me out of my tears. Alexander was staring at his phone screen, his body trembling slightly. "Alexander, what's wrong?" I immediately sat up straight and nudged him, the neighbors in the room, hearing my words. All looked our way. "I'm fine." Alexander looked up and forced a smile, but his red eyes gave away his distress. Grandma Maya, concerned, said, "Alexander, if there's something troubling you, you must share it with us all, so we can face it together." Her daughter's family lived abroad, and she had long treated us young people as her own children. She looked at Alexander tenderly, and he almost burst into tears. Alexander took a deep breath and said somewhat defeatedly, "It's nothing really. I just hate that I haven't made any progress over the years. When my parents were targeted because of my job, I couldn't save them, and now, seeing our kind in distress, I still can't save anyone." Alexander's voice broke, and he couldn't continue. In just a few sentences, I understood why Alexander, once a soldier, had become so dejected. "Alexander, you saved me. I didn't want his spirit to wither." I grabbed his drooping hand and continued, "In our past life, you rescued me from those men. Only now can I be a completely new person. If it weren't for you saving me, carrying those filthy memories, even if reborn, I would have no confidence to live on." Alexander looked at me, dumbfounded, as hope slowly lit up in his eyes. Dr. Alyssa gently persuaded him, "Alexander, as a mother myself, I know that your parents wouldn't want you to be held back by the past." Alexander, trapped by his own guilt for so long, looked at Dr. Alyssa in disbelief, as if asking, "Really? My parents wouldn't blame me for not protecting them." Dr. Alyssa smiled and said, "If you don't believe me, you can ask any of the parents here." Dr. Lou was the first to respond to his wife, nodding emphatically. Uncle Anthony and his wife Mrs. Chen, my mom, and the parents of Lawyer Zachary, as well as Ashton's father, all chorused their agreement with Dr. Alyssa. Alexander pulled his hoodie over his head, bent over, and cried into his knees, "For so many years Perhaps what he needed was someone to tell him that his parents wouldn't hate him. After he had cried enough, his emotional burden seemed to lift. Alexander had just seen messages for help in the community group. Please help me. I haven't eaten in 2 days. I can die. But my daughter cannot. She's only 2 years old. My dad's kidneys are failing. He urgently needs to go to the hospital for dialysis. What should I do? These messages, distressing to anyone with a bit of compassion. No wonder they triggered his past, I sighed, and lawyer Zachary floated past me. Following my gaze, he glanced at the content on the phone and said seriously, avoid looking at things that make you feel helpless, otherwise, it only adds to your worries. The only thing we can do now is trust in our country, believe in the resilience of humanity, preserve our strength, and wait for the day we can rebuild our homes. Lawyer Zachary's words reminded me, in the past, rescue troops had once delivered supplies, and a young girl told me that the country was working hard to research a vaccine for the zombie virus and was also establishing safe zones. At that time, I was in despair and thought she was just trying to comfort me. Now I realize, soldiers bearing the nation's duty and honor wouldn't lie. The apocalypse had swiftly moved through 15 days. There was a nationwide power outage, affecting our neighborhood as well. This blackout led many people to lose hope in life. Their humanity began to distort. In the building across, number 60, a battle erupted over resources. Strong, young men grouped together, wielding axes and knives, breaking into the homes of the elderly and women living alone. Not only did they steal, but they also killed these innocent people and boasted by posting photographs in the group. The fate of Building 60 was no different from ours in the past. A man is not guilty for being poor, but for possessing a treasure. Suddenly someone in the group mentioned, why has no one tried to rob Building 66? They have solar panels. Yeah, I remember they renovated just before the apocalypse started. They might have a lot of supplies. Forget it. Last time I passed by, I heard they have several policemen in that building. Everyone fell silent, and I was relieved they might give up on the idea. The owner of Unit 301 in Building 60 then said, interesting, I'll take up the challenge. My face went pale as I read the message. Our building was being targeted, but thankfully, it was only for the solar panels. If others knew the extent of our supplies, it would be enough to drive everyone to madness. Zombies are sensitive to sound and light, and they still follow human habits of being active during the day and resting at night, even though we know their habits. For safety's sake, apart from the elderly and children, we have always taken turns keeping watch at night. Upon learning that people from Building 60 might come, we no longer dared to sleep. Originally, Alexander had installed solar-powered surveillance, so it continued to function even during the power outage. On the phone screen, 5 burly men appeared stealthily in front of our building. We all armed ourselves, especially the men in the building, ready to fight to the death should they break in. Lawyer Zachary gripped his long knife fiercely and gritted his teeth. I've already faced death once. I've got nothing to lose. If they dare come, I dare to strike. I was so nervous that I hardly dared to breathe, but hearing Lawyer Zachary's words somehow relaxed me a bit. Alexander tugged at my sleeve. Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. Just like last time, his last experience was dreadful, and I did not want to witness that again. Before he could finish, I quickly interrupted with a couple of spits. No, we all need to stay safe. While we were talking, a few people reached the entrance control. They tried to pull it open and exchanged looks, seemingly surprised by the quality of our door. Unable to get through the main entrance, one of the strong men patted the climbing rope on his shoulder. Signaling his companions to try the windows, they nodded and stepped into the flower bed, completely unguarded. The first 3 into the flower bed screamed abruptly, caught off guard. I felt a surge of relief. Their own wrongdoing had led them straight into Alexander's animal traps. Ashton exclaimed, awesome. Other neighbors also looked at Alexander with admiration, realizing their screams could attract zombies. The 3 quickly shut their mouths, but it was too late. On the surveillance screen, the zombies were waking up. The 2 who hadn't been caught tried to escape using their hands and feet, but ran straight into the approaching zombies, eager for a feast. Under the cold, gray moonlight, the zombies' pale eyes looked especially eerie. Their sharp claws and fangs were exposed, and in an instant, they tore open the 2 men, blood splattered, and the air filled with a nauseating stench as the 2, paralyzed by fear, collapsed to the ground. They struggled desperately but only prolonged their lives by a few seconds before more zombies arrived and overwhelmed them. The noise on our side caused an uproar in the group chat. Building 60 is completely wiped out. So terrifying. Honestly, I'd rather starve to death than be bitten by a zombie. There's a real master in Building 66. Stay away. I quietly read the chat logs, took a deep breath, and felt grateful that we had avoided a crisis. But we hadn't anticipated that this crisis would resolve itself so effortlessly, with the help of the zombies. As in my previous life, after the mobile network went down, the water supply system also failed. We had downloaded entertainment in advance and stored a sufficient amount of water, beginning an isolated life. On the 18th day of the apocalypse, it happened to be Ashton's birthday. Ashton was conflicted. Last life, on this day. I tearfully ate a packet of instant noodle seasoning to celebrate my birthday. That's rough. The lettuce I planted was still small, but the green onions were thriving. Generously, I said, "Don't worry, this time we'll celebrate properly. I'll go make my specialty, stir-fried eggs with green onions." Ashton looked pained. "Autumn, please, your pork stew with potatoes from a few days ago made half the building sick, including me." Alexander suddenly chimed in from not far. "I thought it was pretty good last time. They must have weak stomachs." Although it was somewhat comforting, thinking of everyone's health, I ultimately decided to spare them. Lawyer Zachary and Uncle Anthony took it upon themselves to cook over a dozen dishes. We didn't have a variety of vegetables, just potatoes, radishes, cabbages, and bok choy. We mixed various meats together, yet it turned out to be quite a feast. The noise from the range hood was too loud, and fearing that the aroma of our meals might give away the presence of our food, we blocked the vent and always cooked and ate with the air purifier on. Today was a rare, joyful day. Dr. Lou gritted his teeth and brought out a bottle of treasured red wine, and I brought a drink from home that I was reluctant to consume. Lawyer Zachary pulled out some leftover birthday candles from his home, and with the addition of a small loaf of bread, we had almost everything needed for a birthday celebration. Ashton raised his glass and declared heartily, "Thanks everyone for celebrating my birthday. I hope that next year, and every year after, we can all be together." Before we could respond, he had already downed half his glass in one gulp. Dr. Lou slapped his thigh in distress, exclaiming, "Oh, I can't watch this, gulping down fine wine like that. What a waste." Suddenly, Lawyer Zachary exclaimed, "Look at Alexander. He seems to be drunk." We all turned to look in Alexander's direction. There he was, cradling his face in his hands, his eyes glazed, cheeks flushed. Clearly, he had had too much to drink. The party had just started. How could he be drunk already? Sitting next to him, Grandma Maya, noticing our puzzled expressions, patted Alexander on the head with indulgence and said, "He's just like Ashton, gulping down his drink, except he can't hold his liquor. Half a glass and he's out." With that, Ashton, who was mentioned again, gave a silly laugh, and we all joined in. Laughter filled the room. I had wished for time to pass quickly before, but at that moment, I just wanted time to freeze, to keep us happy forever. A month had passed, and the sound of gunfire continued incessantly outside, yet it still felt far away. I drew back the curtain, gazing out at the scene beyond the building. Several buildings had banners with SOS fluttering in the wind, the red letters stark and impossible to ignore. Just a few days ago, people had been driven mad, screaming, and some even provocatively taunted the zombies, but within a few days, the area had become eerily silent. Suddenly, my mother ran down from the attic, excitedly saying, "Autumn, I saw a helicopter next door in the neighboring district. They must be here to drop off supplies." In my previous life, it was on the 25th day that I received the first batch of aid, but this time, the rescue had been delayed. It seemed that our rebirth had caused a butterfly effect, altering the timeline and resulting in slight deviations. We had enough supplies, but to avoid drawing attention, we still needed to collect them. The person delivering supplies to Building 66 was the same young girl from my previous life. Seeing her again brought a special sense of familiarity. The residents of our building gathered on my family's rooftop as she climbed down the helicopter's rope ladder, her face showing a hint of joy. "It's so good to see so many of you still alive in this building," she said, her eyes quickly reddening. With zombies covering the ground, rescue efforts could only be attempted from the air. The sudden zombie outbreak had thrown society into chaos, catching everyone off guard, and the national resources and personnel were simply insufficient. This led to many dying in their homes without ever receiving aid. I could see the young girl was pained by the deaths of her fellow citizens but was unable to offer comfort. Being in her position, she had to accept these harsh realities, the insignificance of human life in the face of death. Downstairs, the zombies, attracted by the sound of the helicopter, began to climb up the windows. Fortunately, another helicopter was providing cover. The little girl cast aside her sorrow, her expression turning serious immediately. After handing over the supplies to us via the rope ladder, she hurriedly signaled to her teammates that it was time to leave. Worried she might not hear me from a distance, I quickly spoke up. "Thank you for bringing us these supplies. We will do our best to survive." The little girl smiled gently. She spoke with determination. "Please trust us, trust our country. We will spare no effort in developing a vaccine and establishing safe zones to come and get you. Our nation has never been truly defeated. A fact instilled in us by the blood of our ancestors. Everyone in our building had no doubt about this. Day 40 of the apocalypse, the zombies, finding less food, had significantly decreased in number. In my past life, my ex-boyfriend Dengwei betrayed everyone in our building on this very day. Knowing the time of his appearance, Alexander kept watch on the rooftop, prepared for an ambush, armed with stun guns and knives. We remained vigilant at all times. At 2 in the afternoon, the rumbling sound of motorcycles echoed over the neighborhood. Zombies are sensitive to noise. It was someone tasked with leading them away. The virus affects the brain, making zombies low in intelligence and acting purely on instinct. Without any hesitation, they staggered, following the motorcycles in groups. Dengwei, along with 8 others armed with hammers, axes, and crowbars, headed straight for our building. Alexander, having drawn his bow, released his grip decisively as they came into range. The arrow pierced the air, striking one of the men, who fell to the ground with a cry of pain. Dengwei stopped, his eyes wide with horror as he watched his twitching companion. The next second, another person beside him fell. Both were shot in the heart. Dengwei leapt up at the rooftop, his eyes blood-red as he shouted, "Run, they're up there." With that, they charged toward our front door like mad dogs. The targets began to move quickly, soon entering a blind spot in our view. Alexander, not fully aimed yet, had no choice but to release his last arrow. A muffled grunt sounded as the arrow hit Dengwei's shoulder, a fair shot under the circumstances. Dengwei, enduring the intense pain, leaned against the building's door, his breath ragged as he viciously said, "Quick, break down this door." The thudding sounds, like drumbeats, struck fear into our hearts. Lawyer Zachary pulled me behind him, saying sternly, "Girls to the back. It's not safe up front." Ashton stood at the head of the corridor, flicking his electric baton. "I'll ambush at the door. As soon as they come in, I'll electrocute them." Alexander hurried down from upstairs, telling Ashton, "I'll join you." But as they were strategizing, the sounds outside stopped. Someone outside anxiously said, "Wait, this door is too solid. By the time we break through, the zombies will probably be drawn here." Dengwei, irritable, snapped, "Idiots, if the door is solid, then smash the wall." My heart skipped a beat, unsure of what to do. Alexander suggested, instead of waiting for them to break in, why not take the initiative, given that both the door and walls could be breached, putting us in constant danger. We all agreed with Alexander's plan. Surrounding our building were green belts, and unexpectedly, Dengwei and his group made the same mistake as those at building number 60. "As long as you kill Autumn, I'll double your food supply on my return." Dengwei had only 4 men left. Anyone with a bit of sense wouldn't dare make a rash move, yet he seemed possessed, hell-bent on seeing me dead. Except for Ashton and Alexander, we all retreated to the second floor. Ashton turned the switch to open the second door. The people outside clearly heard the noise and suddenly fell silent. Then Ashton opened the first door, and Dengwei's men tried to persuade him, "Brother Wei, let's stop this. It's definitely a trap." Dengwei flatly refused. "Autumn owes me $200, and because of her, I lost my job and became the laughingstock of everyone. I won't be satisfied until she's dead." I was so furious I could feel my blood boiling. I had dated Dengwei for 3 months and discovered he was cheating on me with 2 other girls. Those girls didn't know he had a girlfriend. We contacted each other privately, formed a victims alliance, and made a scene at his company. Unexpectedly, his boss, a truly decent person, fired him on the spot. As for the $200, it was just a necklace he gave me for my birthday, priced at $200, but he actually bought it for $20 on SHN. That scumbag. Before he lied, he didn't even bother to hide his shopping circle, and then he had the audacity to blame me. I really couldn't stand it a bit longer. Despite everything, Dengwei's men still entered, but he wasn't leading them. 2 men pushed open the door, didn't see Ashton and Alexander behind it, and then turned to tell the others outside, "They're not here." They might have run upstairs to set up an ambush. Dengwei and the other 2 men entered carelessly. Alexander and Ashton waited until they showed their backs, then rushed out and struck 2 of them on the head with stun guns. With 2 men down instantly, our pressure was greatly reduced. During the fight, Uncle Anthony pulled out his slingshot on the first-floor stair platform and shot a steel ball. It hit right behind Dengwei's knee. He bent one leg and knelt on the ground. Letting out a painful moan, Ashton swung his fists wildly, while Alexander's agile moves left the remaining 2 men powerless to fight back. I rushed to Uncle Anthony's side, pleading, "Uncle, don't stop. Hit that scumbag a few more times." Uncle Anthony, terse and fierce, pinched 2 steel balls and shot them simultaneously, making Dengwei cry out in pain. He had an arrow in his arm, and fearing severe bleeding, he did not pull it out but merely broke the shaft. Dangwei had been the killer who caused our demise in a previous life, and he had made Alexander suffer terribly in death. With a cold expression as if frosted over, Alexander's eyes blazed with hatred as he forcefully pressed down on the arrowhead on his shoulder. Dangwei cried out in tears, "Please let me go. My parents are waiting at home for me. I won't dare to harm anyone again. Everyone in this building has family and friends. Why should you be the only noble one?" Alexander bent down, staring straight at Dangwei, who shivered in fear. Dangwei fell silent, and as Alexander raised his knife to end this menace, I quickly intervened. "Wait." Alexander looked at me puzzled, thinking I didn't want him to kill Dangwei. I ran down and snatched the dagger from his hand. "Let me do it." I didn't want only Alexander to have blood on his hands. This wasn't just his revenge, if it was to be avenged. We should all share in the bloodshed. However, when I was about to proceed, the neighbors wouldn't allow it. They probably thought the same as me, shared joys and shared hardships. If one kills, we all kill. Finally, under the strict guidance of Dr. Alyssa and Dr. Liu, each of us stabbed Dangwei once. Having a doctor was beneficial. After more than a dozen stabs, he wasn't dead. After we threw Dangwei and his accomplice out the door, we shut the large gate again. The two who were caught in the animal traps couldn't free themselves and had to move with the traps still attached. The result was the traps tightening further, causing immense pain. I opened the security window, attached some pork to the drone, and flew it out. Dangwei's companion had lured the zombies away, so I decided to bring them back. In the main road outside the community, a large group of zombies roamed aimlessly. I had only intended to attract a few, but at least 20 followed the pork back. The zombies enjoyed the feast as I usually enjoyed eating hand-torn chicken. I retrieved the drone, closed the window, and chose not to look anymore. In the past, Dangwei caused our deaths at the hands of zombies. This time, we simply returned the favor unchanged. What goes around comes around. Those who harm others will eventually reap what they sow. On every New Year's Eve before the apocalypse, no matter how dull the Spring Festival gala was, we would turn on the TV and use it as background music. It has been 2 years since I last saw it, and unexpectedly, each year felt lonelier than the last. Snow fell heavily outside the window, drifting down like goose feathers, blanketing the world in white. Yet inside it was warm and cozy. Ashton flaunted my snacks in front of me. "It's New Year's Eve again, Autumn. If you want some, I can share a bit with you." My supply of snacks was almost gone, and the worst part was that Ashton had tricked me into playing fishing for kittens a few days earlier, causing me to lose several packs. "Of course I want some," I said, managing a strained smile. Dr. Alyssa sighed in resignation. "Autumn, try to have some dignity," I retorted unconvincingly. "Dignity can't fill my stomach," as Ashton and I fought over the snacks. Uncle Anthony and Dr. Liu's children came running over with a radio. They both exclaimed in unison, "The police said they're coming to pick us up." Everyone in the room stopped what they were doing, and we held our breaths listening to the radio. After 2 years of effort, the nation has now established 500 large safe zones. Capable citizens can choose to relocate to the nearest safe zone. Those who wish to wait for government assistance should tie a red symbol on their windows to facilitate rescue operations. The authoritative and powerful female voice mixed with the static was heard over and over, until the children grew impatient. I wiped the tears from my eyes, delighted. "You two go tell everyone else." The kids joyfully ran out. Everyone in the community was dead, and with the zombies slow in the winter and poor climbers, we all shouted without concern. With this good news, our lives regained a sense of hope. I had a red evening dress bought for a company's New Year party in the past, never imagining it would come in handy now. We tied red ribbons on every household's window, aiming to be as conspicuous as possible. Snow continued to fall, and red fluttered in the wind, presenting a uniquely beautiful scene. On the 5th day of the new year, which is traditionally for welcoming the god of wealth, we didn't wait for the god of wealth, but for a savior instead. A clear voice from downstairs called, "Is anyone there? We've come to take you to a safe zone." We crowded at the window, excitedly watching the military trucks like monkeys on the mountain of flowers and fruit. Our luggage had been packed, ready for this day. Though we hadn't expected it to come so quickly, the soldiers provided cover fire as all 16 of us boarded the truck without anyone missing. Once on board, I realized the person calling us with the megaphone was the young girl who had delivered supplies to us 2 years ago. The girl waved and greeted us. "I didn't lie to you, did I? I said I'd come to pick you up, and I came as soon as I could." I shook my head and smiled slightly. "Indeed, you didn't lie to us." The vehicle started, and amidst reluctance and anticipation for a new life, we watched as Building 66 grew more distant. Alexander patted my shoulder. "Maybe one day, we can come back." "Yes, maybe we can return someday. When we do return, it should be a time when spring is in full bloom and everything has returned to normal." The truck swiftly navigated the city streets, the zombies unable to keep up with its speed. The truck had been remodeled, surrounded by metal fences, providing us with a strong sense of security. Bored, I looked out the window and suddenly saw two familiar faces among the pursuing zombies. It was my dad and my stepbrother when the apocalypse erupted. My dad had again demanded money from me, which I sternly refused, but he threatened me using my mom, saying he couldn't find her and kept looking for her. My mom was easily swayed, and fearing for the safety of the people in our building, I gave him a fake address. Before he left, I warned him about the possibility of infection on the road. I never expected his desire to drink my blood to be so intense that he would completely disregard his own life. In the distance, the evening glow spread across the sky, with crimson clouds stacked on the horizon. The two figures running became more distant, and we drew closer to the safe zone. My father and stepbrother turned into zombies, yet they remained inseparably loyal. This father-son bond might move me for a lifetime. I unconsciously curled my lips into a smile, and my mom, teasing me, said, "Are you that happy about going to the safe zone?" I hid the fate of my dad and stepbrother and nodded with a smile, yes. Because the future is coming.